excited to welcome to the show from Bally Sports Southwest, Brien Rea. Brien, my co-host Liam and I are going to be on a flight in exactly 12 hours to come out to Dallas. What are we getting weather-wise? Do I pack shorts or pants?
Pack a raincoat because it just started pouring down here, and I think it's going to keep up for the next few days. So we can blame you guys because apparently you're bringing it to us. Mm-hmm. But, shorts are fine, but you should probably bring an umbrella as well.
Not what I was expecting.
Not at all. So we will.
At least the game's indoors.
Yes, thank goodness.
That is thankfully a positive. Appreciate you popping on to give us a little preview of this. And we got an interesting comment earlier in our show from Scott, who said the Oilers will finally face a legit cup contender. And what I think is fascinating about these two teams' path to this point, Brien, the Oilers haven't played a true cup contender in my eyes yet. Dallas, I think, has played two in Vegas and Colorado. Is that a positive or a negative? Like, is it okay, Dallas is worn down, they've had two tougher tests, or is it like, no, they're more battle tested, ready to go for a big series?
Well, we're going to know at the end of the series, and that's basically the way it's going to fall. It's Pete DeBoer mentioned as we were covering the first two rounds last year, Minnesota in the first round and Seattle in the second round took a couple pieces out of Dallas, and then they hit Vegas, and Vegas obviously was at the height of their success. And they felt it, taking on a Vegas team. So Dallas, I think they feel they're in a much better spot. They obviously are a much deeper team than they were last year. And I think they've done a pretty good job, and they feel they've done a pretty good job of balancing that depth as well as they could. That's including playing roughly 5 defensemen essentially through the first 2 rounds of these playoffs. But we'll find out at the end of all this. If Dallas wins the series, I think you look at them and go, well, they were battle tested going through Vegas and Colorado. If Edmonton wins this series, I think from a Dallas perspective, you can look at wherever Dallas struggled and say, yeah, they had some pieces taken out of them. I think you'll also look at Edmonton if they win this series and say playing LA, then playing Vancouver, they were building themselves on an upward trajectory, and it's going to continue if they succeed through the series. I actually think Vancouver had a little bit of a stronger case. I get when you don't have Thatcher Demko in net, that takes a dent out of you in terms of the cup contender status. But when I looked at Vancouver and Edmonton, and you're wondering which team Dallas could play, Vancouver, they seem to have a player in all the key spots, whether it's up front, whether it's somebody on the back end, whether it's up and down the lineup. It was just losing Demko that really hurt them in terms of their star power and cachet. So I thought Vancouver was a heck of an opponent for Edmonton to have to deal with to get to this point.
I think one thing too, sorry, Tyler, just with Vancouver is they were relentless. Basically every game but game 6, like they were in the game right to the end of it. But one thing I was curious about, what has kind of been the biggest storyline for Dallas through these 2 series? Like what's kind of what everyone's talking about right now?
Well, for me, I'll take it that way. The story for Dallas from the get-go has been their depth, and whether it's the 8 20-goal scorers in the regular season, whether it's the emergence of Wyatt Johnston here in the postseason, it's the depth has always been their strength, and the depth is what they are going to have to continue to lean on if they're going to make a run to the Stanley Cup final and possibly win the Stanley Cup. And I think you can point at the Vegas series and the Colorado series. There's been different people each night. Wyatt Johnston picked up a ton of the spotlight in the first handful of games, and rightfully so. But Jason Robertson was also one of their better goal scorers in the first part of that Vegas series. Then it was, as it moved along into Vegas and into Colorado, Tyler Seguin then started to add a goal. Matt Duchene's the one who scores the series winner. All season long in the first 82 games, it felt like there was a different person each night that found a way to be the impactful player. And I think as the playoffs have moved along, we've seen different people step into the spotlight for Dallas when they've had that success. Sometimes it's been Jake Ottinger having great performances. And the exclamation point that I'll put on that one, which I think will be interesting to watch in this series, Jim Nill rebuilt the Dallas Stars' 4th line entering this regular season when he added Sam Steele and he added Craig Smith. And that line at times in the Vegas series and the Colorado series has been very much an energy line for the Dallas Stars. And it's not a thunderous body check, heavy physical play type of energy. It's more of a high tempo, aggressive pressure type of energy. So they may not have a ton of goals to show for it, but that line at times they've popped off the ice or off the TV screen to where you go, man, I don't know what it is about this line, but they are clearly causing some problems. And they almost set the table momentum wise for whoever rolls out next to try and do something and provide some kind of punch.
I'm going to ask you a very rare 3-part question, but it's all about Roope Hintz. Roope Hintz, what's his status for game one? Do we have an update? How big of a loss is this for Dallas, and who's been stepping up with him gone?
Well, I was just having the depth conversation with you, right? And I think this is the biggest test of that depth. So we just got done with media sessions and formal press conferences just moments ago. So Peter DeBoer said Roope Hintz, he did not skate today with the main practice group, but he skated on his own earlier. And the label that Peter DeBoer used was pretty extensively on the skate. Thought he looked good, and he's keeping him labeled as day-to-day. It's the playoffs. Day-to-day, who knows what day-to-day means? Nobody is letting any information get out beyond day-to-day. But he skated yesterday, he skated today, and then pretty extensively was the label that Peter DeBoer used on the skate that Roope Hintz did today. So that's the status as of right now. When you take him out of the lineup, Dallas still has depth and they can still win games without him in there. But when I was watching game 6 against Colorado, I thought it was a little fascinating because Roope Hintz disappears from the lineup. Well, they elevate Matt Duchene. Once you elevate Matt Duchene, he was the linchpin that made Tyler Seguin and Mason Marchment go during the regular season and in the playoffs. That now alters that line. And then when you're trying to find a way to keep that offensive push, Wyatt Johnston has been the player getting sprinkled all over the Dallas Stars lineup. Well, that now affects the Jamie Benn and Logan Stankoven pairing because he was the one that made those two go. Now we're talking about 3 different lines that all of basically get affected by Roope Hintz disappearing from the Dallas Stars lineup. We'll see what things look like come game 1, how the lines actually shape up and who's playing with who. And then we'll see how effective the offensive punch is down the roster for the Dallas Stars. But if you're looking for people to step up in Roope Hintz's absence, Matt Duchene's the one who was elevated and ended up scoring the big overtime winning goal, but also had the goalie screen on the overtime goal that never was and probably should have been in that first overtime. And then Wyatt Johnston as well. It feels like those minutes get extended a little bit if Roope Hintz disappears because of how effective he's been. I think those are the 2 centermen or center ice players you look at. Can they pick up the mantle in the absence of Roope Hintz and give a little more punch? Because Wyatt Johnston was the one elevated to the first power play.
Moving along to one big thing whenever teams are game planning for the Oilers, it's game planning for 97 and 29. But with McDavid specifically, we know he likes to attack with speed off the rush and all of those great Connor McDavid things. What D pairing do you think is going to be saddled with the responsibility of trying to shut down 97? Are they going to go with Heiskanen because maybe he can skate a little bit better and keep up? Do you go with the defensive guy in Tanev? What direction do you think they'll go?
I think they go D, all of the above. And whether it's regular season, me covering the Stars, especially with Miro Heiskanen on this roster, yes, they've tried to utilize Heiskanen and get him on the ice as much as possible against McDavid. Now, they have not played the Oilers essentially with Tanev as a part of the roster, and Tanev was the guy they wanted on the ice against McKinnon as much as possible in the last series. I think if you're Peter DeBoer, you're going to try and get one of those 2 players on the ice as much as humanly possible, whether it's McDavid or Draisaitl. Honestly, I do think that they go hand in hand. I know McDavid is in his own world at times, but I do think those 2 can be so dangerous as individuals. But the bottom line for Dallas is they're going to have to defend him as a 5-man unit. And it's a little cliche. It's a little coach speak. I think the way Tanev can position himself and the way Heiskanen can use his feet, sure, they can probably section off a portion of the ice for those players to a certain extent. But at some point, there's somebody else's stick is going to have to be active, whether it's the guy receiving a pass from McDavid, whether it's the puck moving across the box on a power play situation, at some point, somebody else's stick is going to have to be active. So it really is a 5-man project with McDavid and with Draisaitl. But if you're looking for call it a lead singer to the band, it's probably Heiskanen or Tanev that are going to alternate in some fashion, depending who can be on the ice at the right time.
I think Oilers fans want to know, because we've talked about all the positives of what Dallas can be and everything. But what is the biggest weakness? What's the spot the Oilers could exploit this team a little bit?
Well, I do think having Roope Hintz out leaves a question mark on the depth is there, but it really does affect 3 of your 4 forward lines. And so how does that come into play? Peter DeBoer, I thought, made a very fair point in his press conference this morning. The biggest area you can get into problems with Edmonton is if you put them on the power play. And just with that, let alone the Draisaitl and McDavid personnel, the 5-man personnel, but Bouchard's made his presence known. Evander Kane can still be a factor. I think Zach Hyman's the quietest 50-goal scorer we've probably had this year, if you really think about it, so there's a true personnel on that power play unit that's difficult to deal with. Dallas does not take a lot of penalties, and they've been a very disciplined team. Not taking a penalty against Vegas or not taking a penalty against Colorado, that might be a different animal versus not taking a penalty against Edmonton because of the pace they can play at. And McDavid is McDavid when he has the puck. So, series get decided 5-on-5 a lot of times. I thought this about the Colorado series. I think similar to the Edmonton series for Dallas, maybe this becomes a 5-on-4 series in the sense of how little or how often are you putting Edmonton into a 5-on-4 scenario? And that could be a real dictator as to how this series goes. The old cliche, when you're the team on the road, special teams and goaltending are the great equalizer. That could be a really big spotlighted storyline with the way the Oilers are built and how the first 2 games, at least of this series, go here in Dallas.
Last one I got for you. It comes in from our Great Clips inbox. More than 4,400 hair salons throughout the United States and Canada, locally owned and operated, open 7 days a week. And you can use the Great Clips check-in app to see the wait time, check in on your phone, get your haircut when you want. Great Clips. It's going to be great. Oilers fans wanted Chris Tanev at the deadline. There was all this talk that the Oilers made a push to get him, made an offer to Calgary. He ends up in Dallas. We want to know how big his impact has been on that blue line.
Oh, I think just look at the Colorado series. That's, if you want just a microcosm of what his impact has been, that says everything. And whether it's Jake Ottinger talking about him playing in front of him, I think just what he did against McKinnon and those top players in the Colorado series really affected a lot. Colorado's a top-heavy team. That's the way they were built. They cannot win a playoff series unless their top guns are producing. And for the most part, those top guns did not produce because Chris Tanev was one of the key players on the ice. So that's the short-term recency bias effect that he's had. Big picture, I haven't checked the updated stats today. I haven't done my full deep dive into this series quite yet, but I know that after the first 2 rounds, I believe Dallas was leading the playoffs in shot blocks. Now, that is a team commitment. That is a defensive core commitment. But what's Chris Tanev's MO? I mean, what has he basically run his campaign on as a hockey player in the NHL? He's a shot blocker. He eats pucks. And so whether it's his personality has maybe bled itself into the decor a little bit, that's probably part of it. I think the Stars, they made a point before the regular season was done to start adding Stanley Cup habits, is the phrase they used, into their game. And that is a Stanley Cup habit that you need to bring into the playoffs. So it's kind of one in the same chicken or the egg. You bring in one of the best shot blockers in the league and a guy like Chris Tanev, but you're also a team that's trying to instill those habits. Both of those things, put those in place. And I think you can look at that. The shutdown of McKinnon and the shot blocking the Dallas Stars have added, those have Chris Tanev's fingerprints all over them.
It's going to be my first time in Dallas, Liam's first time in Dallas. Can you play tour guide and give us a good restaurant recommendation?
Do you know where you guys are staying or what area of town?
Oh,
Zero idea.
It's downtown.
Okay.
Downtown. Okay. Look, it's Texas. It's two things. It's Tex-Mex and barbecue. It's the absolute tourist trap way to do it, but it's two things it's known for. So Pecan Lodge in Deep Ellum, that's a pretty well-known barbecue joint that you should catch down here. I'll give you this. Chewy's Tex-Mex is a chain. It's a franchise all over Texas. Everybody's been to a Chewy's. But the key is when they bring you the chips and salsa, you need to ask for the jalapeno ranch instead of the salsa.
Okay.
That's the move.
All right. I like that. The kind of insight
I will die on the jalapeno ranch hill nonstop. That is the move if you're coming into Dallas for this series.
I love it. Look forward to seeing you in Dallas. Looking forward to this series and appreciate you giving us some time.
Absolutely. Enjoy it, guys. Good to talk to you.
Yeah. See you later.
There you go. Brien Rea on the Star Mechanical Guest Line, Edmonton's #1 plumbing and heating company. That was great. Also, we throw him the Great Clips question. He has unbelievable hair, so that was fitting, and he gave us good insight. What's up, Nation citizens? If you like that video, then you need to be subscribed to the Oilers Nation YouTube. Podcasts, live shows, exclusive interviews, and analysis. Everything you need from your favorite voices at Oilers Nation. And you don't want to miss any of it, so hammer that subscribe button.